Welcome to Crafting for Profit Live. Today we're diving into something we've been asked about quite a few times now, and that is wholesaling. If you've ever wondered how to get your handmade products into shops or what retailers are actually looking for, this is the episode for you.
Today, we are joined by Brittany Wolf, founder of SHEWOLF Designs. Brittany has built a business that has not only stocked shops across the country, but is also deeply aligned with her values and creative vision.
We're going to ask her all the things, like how to know when you're ready to wholesale. What system should you have in place before you start pitching? How do you handle rejection? And what it really means to grow with intention in the space.
So, whether you're just toying with the idea of wholesale or already have a few wholesale items under your belt, Brittany is going to bring the kind of insight and honesty we love around here. So, let's get into it. All right, Brittany, welcome. Let's start with the basics.
Thank you.
Let's start with the basics. Can you tell us your story and how SHEWOLF Designs came to life?
Absolutely. So my background is in nonprofit marketing, which is important work, but creatively it's dry, like painfully dry, right? So in the summer of 2021, I was tagging along with my best friend who was attending local makers markets and doing her own kind of jewelry as a hobby. And I was just there helping her out so that her husband didn't have to spend every weekend, there and doing the thing with a smile. And, I was having a great time. So um, as I was there at the makers markets, it was just, the being around other creatives, especially women in this space, really kind of lit a fire in me. I didn't realize how much I needed a creative outlet until I was really there. And I am never the type of person to kind of play it small or be quiet. And so because I wasn't getting that outlet in my workspace, I decided that this was just where I needed to go. So in February of 2022, I started taking some of the space in my bestie's booth. Like I would just sneak in a little bit of a corner with like 5 stickers that had nothing to do with her jewelry line. Because I had access to Adobe Illustrator through my job. So I was like, all right, let me do these 5 stickers. Let's see what happens. So my first market was a Valentine's Day event, and I couldn't believe just the connections I was making with people. And even just over my designs, I was like, are you sure you want to buy this? It has the Maryland flag. Marylanders love their flag. And I was like, really? You love this? So going in with zero expectations, it was great. And that was from there on, I was hooked.
I feel like that's kind of how it goes for a lot of people, where you just need this like creative outlet outside of your job and you love doing it so much that you're like, yeah, let's go all in.
Absolutely.
And Marylanders, they do love their flag. If you don't know that already.
We have a few colors, and so people play with that. But yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some memes recently and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
We love it hard.
Yeah. All right. So at what point in your business did you decide to explore wholesaling and what made you consider it?
So it's actually pretty early on. There at the same time, there was a new shop that was opening up in my area that had like a curated space with like 60 plus local makers. And this was the first of its kind. And so they were offering to stock my bestie's jewelry. And I was like, hey, do you mind, can I like sneak in 1 or 2, like just to kind of see? And they were like, okay, sure, why not? Let's try it. So that was kind of my first taste of a more like passive income, right? I didn't have to be physically present to make the sale. And so there was just a lot of freedom in it, especially because I still had a full-time job. So I participated in 20 days of markets that first year. Like every weekend I was doing it, right? And it was exhausting, and I realized I didn't have the bandwidth. So then I kind of started asking other makers who were at those makers markets, right? Like, hey, what do you do? Especially those who do it full time. Some were talking about custom work or licensing. And then some told me about wholesale and how it's mainly just selling to the store owners. So, I decided that this was kind of the lifestyle that I was looking for, right? Like even as a side hustle, right? If I could just design a few things and kind of let it run by itself, almost like Etsy, where, the algorithm picks it up and then people start seeing, I was like, this is the way that, I kind of wanted to go. So, yeah, it's kind of that autopilot feature I like to talk about. So I found an online wholesale coach, signed up for a 6-week intensive, and started treating it really like a part-time job. Then all of 2023, I spent it like a, real business, right? So it was no longer only fun. It was the tracking the expenses, making decisions on margins. And that was just a huge mindset shift for me. So I quit my full time actually at the end of 2023, and last year was my first full year.
That's awesome. In the blogging world, we talk a lot about passive income, and it feels like having an Etsy shop doesn't feel like passive income, but when compared to doing craft fairs, and having to get out there and unload all of your stuff and talk to all of the people and everything, something like an Etsy shop or wholesaling, we can talk a little bit about fair here in a bit. It does feel a little bit more passive than something like a craft fair. I hadn't really thought of it in that aspect before, but you're totally right.
And I feel like you're living the dream with like the passive aspect of it. You're doing it full time now. Like you are the dream for what a lot of people striving for, especially our audience. So I really feel like people are going to get a lot out of this. Just using your advice to take that next step into wholesale instead of, like you said, like busting it every single weekend at a craft fair. Like, let's take this to the next step and really make some income that you don't have to work so hard for.
Yeah. And for those of you, I mean, none of you guys know this, but Brittany actually was the first person I started talking to about wholesaling. And she's kind of been my like entrance into wholesaling. So I've been doing a little bit of wholesaling, and I think I have my stuff in like 4 stores now. It's a very cute amount, but it makes me so happy knowing that there's bookstores, because I make bookish crafts. There's bookstores in the US now that just carry my stuff. And I'm like, so cute. I love it so much.
You have to start somewhere, right? Like I only started with 4 stores, then you just keep going.
Totally. And it kind of is one of those things where it like, the more you do it, the more you like become motivated to do it. Like all I really want to do is make like a giant map and like start marking down where all the stores are that I'm in, because I feel like that would be a really great visual to see, okay, oh, I still need to get somebody in Montana, and then I can reach out to like bookstores specifically there once I get going a little bit more. So it sounds like so much fun.
I actually have one of those. It's like made out of, it's just like vinyl on a piece of clear acrylic. I will send you guys the files, but I literally have a chalk marker and I just color in every state. So I know I'm like 6 states away from all of them already. But yeah, it's fun to do that.
That's like a visual goal. I love it.
And then when, like, my ultimate thing would be like when you're traveling to go to those stores and see your product in those stores, like the ultimate high, right?
Yeah.
So I did it for the first time last year. We did a trip to Charleston, South Carolina, and it was more for just fun. But I happened to get a store there literally like a month before we went on the trip. So I was able to go there, see my things in person. And it's still weird for me to see it and be like, oh my God, they really like me.
No, like that's like the attitude of like basically every crafter. When anybody buys anything, they're like, oh, you like my stuff. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. All right. So when we're talking about getting into these shops, what are retailers like looking for when they stock handmade or small batch goods?
Yeah, I mean, so retailers, which also say stockists is another term for retailers. So some people see that and they're like, I have no idea what that is, but that's just the retailers. So they really they want consistency, they want quality, and they want clarity in your product offering. So, we have to think about it like the store owners, they're just like us, right? They have a dream of running a store, running a small bookshop, and investing money in their business on the products and the brands can really make it or break it, right? You can bring in hundreds of dollars of inventory and it doesn't sell, it sits there. So they want to know that when they're ordering from you, the experience is going to be smooth. So I would say, first off, your line should feel intentional, not like you just slapped a whole bunch of different designs or product categories together, right? My biggest thing is you should start small. So I started with stickers and I only recently added like greeting cards. Even though they might go together, you really want to make sure that what you're offering is what people want, right? And the sales and the data are going to be able to tell you that. Wholesale is a long-term strategy and a numbers game. I have 1,500 people on my lead list. I have, 15% of that are, my wholesalers like that who actively buy from me, right? So the more products you have in one category, the better chance you have of connecting with just one buyer. So if I'm launching a new category, let's say it's, I just did Mother's Day and Father's Day cards, I would try and have at least like 6 to 8 designs from somebody to choose from, because resellers are all looking for different things at different times. And so they might cherry pick from your entire catalog. Oh, I like a few of these things. I like a few of these things. So you really need to have like a wide variety. Um, the other thing is good margins, right? As much as we love to be creative and the relationship building, we're here for the money, especially store owners. Their overhead in those spaces is insane, right? So you really need to know your margins. Like wholesale costs are about 50% of retail. So you want to make sure that your products, when you're selling them, are priced well enough so that both of you guys can make money. And this is where following some of those industry standards for your category is crucial. So there's minimum order quantities, right? Case quantities. So if somebody's ordering stickers, they need to buy 6 stickers. You can't just buy one piece by itself. And that's kind of a standard for all paper products. For goods like my enamel pins, it's only 3, per design. So having all of that in your pricing structure, I think, is really important. And having those laid out so that retailers know it ahead of time before they buy you is going to show them that you've really put in the time to look at what the industry standards are, and it tells them that you're really serious about your business. The other thing I will say about wholesale buying that not a lot of people take into consideration is that the buying season is vastly different than the retail season. So, buying trends are a little bit different right now. It used to be wholesalers would buy 6 months in advance for their store, right? So, that's very different than when you're going to a maker's market and you're like, yes, I'm going to sell Mother's Day. But really, people are already looking into, maybe Halloween or something like that. So you need to give them the designs when they're ready to buy it. There's 2 major buying seasons. So in the spring and summer, people are buying. So like July is the market. People are buying Halloween. They're buying the holidays. Like I have friends who are already getting Valentine's Day 2026 out there. I am not there yet, right? That is like a long-term goal. But I would say for the most part, store owners are definitely buying, maybe 2, maybe 3 months in advance. So just keeping that in perspective. And then at the end of January, early February is usually the biggest launch of the year where people are, pumping out designs for the summertime and graduations and Mother's Day and stuff like that.
Let's talk a little bit more about where you sell your wholesale products. So let's talk a little bit about Fair and then any other way that you might, sell your wholesale products.
Absolutely. So you mentioned Fair. Fair, I jumped on Fair when it was relatively new to the scene. So it was really cool. I've gotten to learn some of the tips and tricks of using it. I had a Fair rep for a while who left, and then apparently they don't give you a new one, which is, they heard my feedback about that. But anyway, Fair is basically like Etsy for store owners, right? So it's a platform similar to Etsy. They're actually implementing a lot of similar back end tools nowadays. So that's really nice for the brands on our side. So buyers can sign up to buy, and then brands like myself sell up to sell. You definitely need to have your wholesale terms and minimums up front, right? So you might go to Fair. This is actually my biggest tip is I signed up for Fair as a retailer, as if I was going to go to buy. And that's how I kind of do my research into what everyone else is doing in the industry, right? So I look at some small brands, some big brands, and I'm like, oh, how many stickers are they selling per design? What does the cost have to be? And you will see anybody who puts $0 to $25 as their, first opening order minimum is definitely not following industry standards. Because if your cost is, $1.75, you're selling it, let's say it costs 75 cents, you're not making any money if somebody's buying $1 worth, right? So you really need to get that math down. So on Fair, you just upload the products. Like I said, similar to Etsy, they do have an option now where you can actually pay to play. So they will promote your products based on, let's say a $50 limit per month, but there's no way to pick yet which products themselves are going to be promoted. So they just use the store owners, what their researching terms are, and who they think is going to be best for you. So fair is definitely the number one way where I get my organic traffic from. I do use the pay to play feature, but I, go up in cost, down in cost, depending on what quarter it is and what the buying cycles are. And I start small, right? So I think anybody could kind of play around with it, but if they don't have the money for it, that's okay. Fair wants to make money. So if you are brands that they think is going to be bought by, whatever stores, they're going to show you to them because they get a commission, kind of like Etsy. So there is a commission structure where it is 15% plus $10 for any opening order, if it's an organic buy. That said, again, they want you to make money and them to make money. So if you bring retailers to the platform, say, Corey, you're like, you know what, I'm going to actually open up a retail shop for, the bookish stickers. If I were to say, hey, if you buy some of my stuff, you can get free shipping for a year. And if you sign up for Fair, they will give you a 0% commission. So the number one thing with Fair is that you want to upload your leads and contacts to Fair so that you can lock in that 0% commission. You don't want to give them 15%, right? If you've done all the work. So the organic definitely comes from Fair. The other way that I get the wholesale orders is just doing outreach, right? So I do a lot of my research through Instagram. I'm looking for store owners that have similar brands to mine, and I'll go ahead and follow them, right? We know how to support other businesses. So it's exactly the same. Go and follow them, drop into their DMs. Hey, I love your vibe. And then I will, send them a pitch email basically saying, hey, we either chatted online or I found your shop online. I think we're a great fit for X, Y, and Z. Just really quickly, here are my wholesale terms. Here's a link to my product catalog, which we'll get into, but that's just on Canva and you just share the link. And then for the most part, people don't respond to pitches. How many emails do you have in your inbox right now? So even though people aren't responding to the pitches, they're seeing your stuff, right? So I will get in orders, down the line from somebody that I chatted with on Instagram. So definitely that one-on-one. The other way that I do that is through trade shows, which I just started doing. I did my first one last year. And trade shows are a big financial investment. So I only did one during the January buying cycle. So it was in New York in 2024. And I don't have any plans to do it again this year, just again, financially. It's basically like one big craft market, right? If anybody has done Renegade Craft or any of those shows, right? It's exactly the same thing. You're selling to people are passing by your booth. They're either not making eye contact or they're like, oh, okay, this looks interesting. Let me chat with you. And so meeting retailers at those types of trade shows is another really good way.
I've had a couple other ways, just going to throw it out there for my, 4 people I'm wholesaling with. One is actually a bookshop that's not open yet. They reached out to me on Instagram, which I thought was interesting. They're looking for products and I have products. And then the other way is I've had people reach out to me on Etsy, which I thought was really interesting, saying, hey, do you offer wholesale pricing? And I say, yes, here are my minimums. Here's the, pricing structure. And I've had people order through that. And I'll just create a custom order in Etsy because it was for things I don't have on Fair yet. And so that's been another one where I've just been kind of surprised. I've had maybe 2 orders directly from Etsy. So
that's something I've never gotten anybody to reach out.
Yeah.
You can't even get regular customers to answer. So that's amazing.
Right. So it was like one of those like, yeah, sure, we can totally do that. And I think I have a Shopify shop as well, and it has a wholesaling section on it. And I'm still working, I'm still right in the beginning of this, but I think having the wholesaling section, that's going to link to Fair. And then one other thing I wanted to point out is if you are selling on Shopify, Etsy, all of those, I have been using like Fair and Shopify will link and update your inventory quantities. And then I have an app to update Etsy and my Shopify shop. It's called Shuttle, and it will basically update the inventory quantities between Etsy and Shopify which means that if I sell something on Etsy, it goes through Shopify and it updates in Fair. And so having that means that I'm not going to get a wholesale order for something I just sold on Etsy, which I think is really important for people to understand, because it's like, okay, I say I have 15 of this sticker and then I go and sell them on Etsy and then I get the wholesale order and I'm like, oh, I only have 7. That's just really bad customer experience. So I think having the inventory syncing is like a really important piece of this that I feel like I haven't seen a lot of when I've been researching wholesaling.
I definitely agree with that. I had an issue with that because again, I started with the markets, right? So I'm like, oh, I have a separate pile of bags for this, and I have a separate sticker, bookshelf for that and whatever. And it did not work out. Actually, I ran into that earlier this week where I thought I had 12 stickers, but I only had 11 and they're sold in sets of 6. So I was like, oh, sorry, just wait a day. So it happens, right? But yeah, definitely that Fair Shopify integration is really good. I actually have all of the inventory in Shopify,
Me too.
not Etsy. Yeah. And then I have the same thing where it's the Etsy integration and the Fair integration.
And another one is if you're selling with your Square reader at a fair, you can run your Square purchases through Etsy. You have to pay the fee, which it sucks, but it then, your Etsy totals go up for how many sales you have. And then it automatically syncs through it. It goes from like Square to Etsy to Shopify to Fair, which cracks me up. But I'm like, I know I pay a little bit extra for this, but having the peace of mind that all of my inventory is going to be correct. And then I do an inventory count. I'm going to lie. That was a lie. My boys, this is something I can pay my 9-year-olds to do. My 9-year-olds will do an inventory count, especially for stickers, because I feel like those often get miscounted. They'll do that for me. About once a month, I'll be like, okay, guys, I'm going to pay you to count all the stickers again.
We call it math class.
It is math class. If they're homeschooled, come out here for math class.
That's
You're
girl
doing long
right
division
there.
inside and counting out here.
So I feel like we talked about several systems a maker should have in place, but any other systems you recommend that a maker have in place before they start the pitch process?
We talked a lot about it. So just knowing your opening orders and your reorder minimums too, right? To make sure that you're going to be making money. Knowing those minimum order quantities. So like I said, stickers, right? You have to buy 6 of them at a time. Payment terms is another one. We haven't talked about it that much, but for a wholesale, it's really net 30 terms is what most people use. And that just means that they pay you in 30 days. So unlike making money at a market or an Etsy where you might get paid, let's say immediately or in 2 weeks or whatever it is when it deposits, you really have to take that into account because you can't be spending all your money on inventory and then you're not getting paid for another month. Sometimes with these bigger, I do have one like small box store and it's net 60. So like if I'm not getting paid for 60 days and it's a big order, I need to know that for sure. And then also just knowing your lead time and the turnaround time. So look at the average, like for the industry, I think 1 to 2 weeks is the average on Fair. If you can do better than that, like I shoot for that, I ship same day because I'm a crazy person. So if you can do in 1 to 5 days, like you're already ahead of the curve. And then your pricing, obviously, and also a SKU system. Not everybody uses a SKU system, but it is really important. They're basically just labels that you give to every single one of your products. That way, when you are sending out your line sheet or your Fair link to a shop, you can, they can say, oh, you know what, I'm just going to order 30 pieces of, sticker 001, right? Instead of like a weird, what's the official title of this sticker? And then there's confusion. And maybe you have 2 designs that are the same. And so having a SKU system is absolutely at the top of the list. A retailer will know that you're not, established or you don't really know what you're doing yet if you don't have one of those. And I think the whole thing is, just fake it till you make it. And they're like, oh yeah, this person knows what they're doing. I want to order for them.
Yeah, I have a SKU system set up for, my products, and it's literally like ST01 for stickers. It's TB for tote bags, and then just going up. It doesn't need to be anything complicated. I have a very fancy Google document with all of my SKU numbers in it. Like I think sometimes we overcomplicate things, but literally it doesn't have to be that complicated.
I completely agree. Mine is definitely STK-01, tote 01. And I also live in Google. So all of my documents are there. My leads contacts lists are all in Google. That way you can just get, update it whenever you want. So find a store on Instagram, I'll just copy and paste their like hyperlink into this drive and then go pitch them later. But it's just a good place to drop all of your info too.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
All right, commercial break time.
Let's do a commercial break.
Okay, so commercial break today is for a freebie, and this is actually Corey's freebie, so I'm going to let Corey kind of talk about it.
Sure. So when I started doing craft fairs last year, I had like 6 different checklists. I was really annoyed with myself because I kept forgetting things. So I made like the ultimate craft fair checklist. And this is a freebie. You can go ahead and download this at our website, which is link.craftingcamps.com/free checklist. And this is basically everything you need to take to a craft fair. And there's also places for you to write in your own things, just in case there's things that are specific to you that that are not already on the list. But you can grab that one for free at link.craftingcamps.com/free checklist.
And I will say there was stuff on that list that I would never have thought of as well. So if you think I already have a list, you might want to download it just to like Corey's mind worked in ways that mine did not.
All right. So you talked about having 1,500 people on your contact list and only having 15% of those people being your actual wholesalers. We know that rejection can be tough, especially I think as women. I feel like we are conditioned to be people pleasers and to want everybody to love us and all of this. So how do you handle the no's? How do you keep that momentum without just getting super discouraged?
Well, I think first of all, having a tough exterior, which I think most of us have doing craft shows, right? It's like people will literally ignore you or just keep on walking, or like, especially because my brand is a little bit louder, clutch their pearls, whatever it is. Like I've seen it all. And you just have to think that it's not personal, right? Business is not personal. And especially when you're talking with these store owners, just because it's a no right now does not mean it's not, it's a no forever. Oftentimes it's the wrong season. So like I said, people could be buying 6 months ahead of time. It could be 2 months ahead of time. It could be, oh, wait, I have a Mother's Day event this weekend. Let me grab some quick last minute products. So it could be the wrong season. It could be the wrong fit. It could also be the wrong budget, right? So you are not for everyone. So you just need to stick to, your brand guidelines. And like I said, if you can't go below a certain, cost, that's okay. And store owners know that because they have the same limitations when it comes to their businesses as well. So, the more you pitch, the more you normalize it. I think it's a lot easier to put myself out there online than it is in person sometimes. So honestly, I just started dropping into just the DMs of some of these retailers, and I would never normally do that. Like I am, kind of more quiet in the background when it comes to that. But yeah, so just designing to reach more interested buyers, right? We talked about the fact that you need to have a wider product catalog, right, to get people's attention. And so maybe they don't love the card that you just designed, but maybe for the next season, the next event, they're like, this is amazing. I actually do have a retailer who only buys cards. And because cards is my most recent category, I don't have a ton of them. And so they bought once a year ago. And I was like, "Ugh, I love them, but I wish that we could support each other more and work together." And then they just bought from me this week, and they were Mother's Day cards, which was a brand new category. But before then, there wasn't really much for them to buy, even if they liked me. And just, again, keeping into account, it's a long game and it's a numbers game. Right. And so I made my first contact at the trade show last February. It took over a year to get my first order with them. And that was just me being like, hey, how's it going? What are you guys looking for? Sometimes getting responses, sometimes not. And so now they're actually my biggest retailer. They're kind of my like small box retailer that I was talking about. So, I mean, that took over a year, right? And if you give up immediately, you wouldn't have gotten there. So it really is about the contacts and the relationships, and you never know who you're going to be working with next. So just keeping an open mind.
I think just what you said right there is really important too. Like buyers change, right? Like unless it's maybe a small business they're the buyer, they own the shop, they're the buyer. Like any business that has more than one employee might have somebody who's specifically doing the buying, and that person may change over time. So maybe the first buyer was like, nah, it's not quite for us. And the second buyer's like, hey, I love that stuff. So things like that, you just got to keep in their inbox and keep them excited about your stuff. And then one other thing I wanted to mention here that we've talked about a little bit is, your brand really is specific. And so is my brand, right? Like I am making things for book lovers. You are making things for sassy ladies. Put that like gently. I love your stuff. But I feel like having like a clear idea of what your brand is so that they can go, okay, I know what I'm getting when I go to Brit. Like I'm going to see what she has next because I know I'm probably going to like it. Whereas if you're doing 1,000 different things, like that gets much harder for like a brand to like, say, okay, I want to shop with them again because they go back and they're like, wait, why does she have all this weird country chic, flowery stuff? And that's not her style at all. So I think that that's really important too. And we've talked about this a lot on the podcast, is just having a really strong brand.
For me, I tend to keep in mind, like, especially cold calling, that like if 5% of those people respond to you, that's a really good percentage. So if you reach out to 50 people, that means if 3 people even responded and like it actually engaged with you, that's a really good percentage. And that feels really low. But I feel like you need to keep that in mind when you're setting your expectations with those cold calls, because the percentage is going to be way lower than you're probably expecting it to be.
Yeah, I never, ever, ever get responses from my pitch emails, ever. But it's just something that you got to do, right? You got to put yourself out there. What is it? You need about 11, 12 touch points to convert, right? It's the same thing when it comes to a store owner. You need to think about where they are in that point in time. It can be quiet, but that's not always a bad thing because it could be coming along, right? You just never know.
Yeah, with a cold call, you never know what is going to happen. So it's just like, you shoot your shot. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And that's okay.
Yeah, I think it goes into a lot about when we were talking about intention too. And so, the 1,500 people I have on my leads list, I have them categorized, but they are not just any other store. Like I actually take a lot of time to look into the stores that I'm pitching. I believe in quality over quantity. So I'm looking with stores that have similar brand values to mine. But there are some people, my husband does not share this mentality. He thinks I should throw any store I see onto my list, and I'm like, no, like these are, I know the store owners that I want to work with and that are going to have the same values. And I think that's what's going to get people to buy, right? People buy from people, not just a sticker that's around there.
Yeah, good point.
All right. So for the crafters that are just getting started with wholesale, they're going to make mistakes. So what do you think are the biggest beginner mistakes and how could they avoid them?
I think the biggest mistake, which I still suffer with, is just waiting until everything feels perfect. That day won't come. So whether or not you're like, oh, my pitch email doesn't sound good enough, I don't know that this design is strong enough. There's a lot of also imposter syndrome when it comes to us as creatives, right? So like, oh, I don't know if this is good enough as this brand. Like, do I wait? Do I not wait? Just get it out there. Start imperfectly, I think, is just the number one thing. Start pitching imperfectly, just putting yourself out there. Designs that I love sometimes are big hits and vice versa. You just don't know what's going to hit with certain people. And I also think with AI, right? Everybody's talking about it, and ChatGPT, there are good ways to use it, but sending generic emails with no personalization, there's no content or emotion behind it. Like store owners get that. I'm on some lists of like my friends who I'll get their weekly email and I'm like, oh, she didn't really do a lot with that. I'm like, all right, you do you. And store owners, again, they're just like us. And so they can tell. The other one is, again, wholesale buying cycles. So not being aligned with the production times, knowing your lead times, making sure your inventory is, as clear and correct as it possibly can be. Mistakes happen. They know it. Everybody's okay with that, but you also need to own it. So communication is a huge thing. I would rather over communicate than under communicate with the store owner. Hey, your order just went out. There's a problem with it. And so just making sure that you're not afraid to reach out to stores if you need to. When I was first starting out, I had a sticker that had a word that was misspelled. I have a little sticker. It says geriatric millennial, and it's like a little ribbon, like a little award, right? And the word millennial was misspelled.
No one can spell the word millennial correctly. Let's be real.
Yep. And it was one of my very first stores and, launching. And I was like mortified. And I reached out to them. I reordered the correct stickers, reached out to them and was like, don't know if you noticed. They didn't, but don't know if you noticed, but this is misspelled. Here's free replacements because this is totally on me. And they told me that meant a lot to them because they didn't know, right? They were selling whatever merchandise, but I could not feel good about them selling something that was misspelled. I think just really being communicative and open, transparency with, again, communication, but also those MOQs and, all those logistical back ends of the wholesale industry.
I think, yeah, just doing your research on the wholesale industry in general, whether that's listening to this podcast and to talking to people who are doing wholesale, watching YouTube videos. Like I had signed up for a buyer account on Faire before because there are also things I want to buy. Like for one thing that I want to add, at least to my craft fairs, is I want to add candles that have like, bookish, like smells like, whatever. I don't know how to make a candle. I don't really care to learn right now because I just have 1,000 other things I'm working on, but I can buy, blank candles from Faire and then slap my own bookish labels on them. And that's a great way for me to utilize both ends of the Faire spectrum, I guess, to be able to buy from them and to sell there as well.
And you're also supporting another small business, right? Like that's amazing. You're supporting the candle maker. And like you said, we don't want to slap things together and this is your brand. So candles are not part of your brand. Why would you do that? Nobody would be expecting you to. So working with someone else is definitely great.
Yeah, and it means a lot to me to buy from another small business versus buying candles on Amazon. That feels icky to me. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to buy, wholesale priced candles that are handmade by a maker on Faire. And then I'm going to give them bookish labels to make them my brand and then resell them basically. I feel like that's a really good way to kind of utilize what we've got here and to expand the number of products I can sell without having to learn how to make candles. All right. So you've talked a little bit about growth with intention, like being intentional and how you're growing this business. What does that actually look like for you?
Yeah. So we talked about already, choosing store owners that I'm pitching that have my brand values. You don't just want shelf space. You want people who are actually going to be buying from you. Using the retailer data and like feedback and data to, inform my products. So like we just talked about with your candles, right? If I wanted to create, I don't know, candles, right? That's not really my thing. But what would be maybe in my wheelhouse was creating a sticker label to put on the candles. So that's the perfect, example of that. Just because I think also the difference between sometimes treating our businesses like a hobby side hustle and the full time, I can't just produce what I want, right? It's got to make sense. And it also has to sell. So I have bags, right? I have pouches and I have totes. Pouches do better, but I can't get rid of tote bags because a lot of people still buy tote bags, right? It's different products for different purposes. And so just kind of knowing what makes sense with the business. And then also, intentionally building in time for rest and that work-life balance. Pitching takes a lot. It's a lot of administrative back end, right? It doesn't necessarily feed your creative soul. And so making sure that I'm taking a little bit of time, maybe each week or one day a month to design, like the whole day, that's all I'm going to do, right? I'm going to pump up a few stickers and like just kind of get into that good creative space. Because we all know that burnout is real and our businesses, how many of us are really working 40-hour work weeks? It's like, obviously a lot more than that. So, going out to lunch with friends, like I just had lunch with my sister the other day because I'm like, what, fine. I can make this up when I'm working at 9:00 at night. It's not going to make a difference. So intentionally making space for the design, and working with products, again, the themes that fit your space and the people who also have the same intentions as you do, same values, I think are really like the three big pillars of that.
I feel like those are things we talk about all the time on this
all
podcast.
the
So
time.
they should be used to hearing all of those things, but it's good to hear it from you as well.
Yeah. Again, store owners, they're just like us.
I feel like that's something that I have learned, right? Because I'm working with small bookshop owners, like I'm working with just other women who are about my age who just have a dream of running a cozy bookshop and selling cute little things. And I'm like, well, that's like my other dream. It's me in another life, you know? And so it's been really lovely to work with, these small bookshop owners because I'm just like, I want to help support your dream and you're helping me support my dream. And then it's just all sorts of good juju that goes between everybody. And I like that a lot.
You're also dealing with another small business owner who is also overwhelmed. So patience would probably be key as well.
Yes.
Like they are exactly you, and put yourself in their shoes just a minute.
Yeah. Think about how many open tabs you have of things that are like maybe in your shopping cart. You might have to herd some cats sometimes, like to get across the finish line. And that's okay because there are normal people like that now. Amazon, I don't how many things are in that cart until you actually like decide you want to buy it or not buy it. And it's the exact same way.
All right. So, what advice would you give to someone who wants to try wholesaling and feels totally overwhelmed by the process? Because you are doing all the acronyms like the MOQ and all this, and I feel a little overwhelmed by the process. So, give us your best advice.
Okay. So first off, just do some YouTube research, find somebody, tap into somebody. My DMs are always open. Like talk to somebody who can, relate everything back to you and like really give you a transparent roadmap or feedback, right? About what's possible. Cause we see a lot of business coaches, right? And it's like, oh, I made 6 figures, but how much did you really bring in? And so I think it's really important to just, start branching out and just chatting with people in the community and breaking it down, focus on one thing at a time. So I apologize for the acronyms, but, get your, minimum order quantities, MOQs in order first. Get your SKU system in order first. Then decide, okay, let me tackle fair or let me do photos. Like that's one of the very last things that I do. So just, one baby step at a time because there is a lot to it. Once you have everything set up, it's kind of like a well-oiled machine, or at least that's the hope, but it takes a while to get there. So a little bit of patience, knowing that you're absolutely going to be making mistakes and starting small. Pitch 5 retailers a week, not 50. Because then you're going to also burn yourself out. So yeah.
One other thing we should mention too is it's not easy to get on Fair. It's not like just to sign up for it. They have a huge backlog of people who want to be on Fair. Getting a recommendation from someone that's on Fair can help. It took me, so I applied sometime last year and just didn't hear back. I asked them, they're like, you're still in the queue, didn't hear back. And I was like, I'm going to apply a second time. And they're like, you're accepted. And I was like, the heck? I waited all these months. And like that day I was accepted the second day. And I was like, okay, so you might have to apply more than once. You need to show that you have a shop that's active, that is not, I think that's not just Etsy. I think you have to have a Shopify shop or like a WooCommerce or something.
I did not have one. I think so. They are definitely more stringent now than they were before. So
Yeah.
Think again, having those SKUs, try to show them your catalog. If you have something like that, they'll be like, oh, okay, they kind of know what they're doing because they're already set up.
Yeah, so I made sure I set up like a functioning website with a cart. I think I had to have something other than my Etsy shop. So I had to have like a functioning Shopify shop. So I spent a lot of time working on that shop, making sure that it was fully stocked, that I had a working checkout. And so I think there's, it's a big process. There's a big list of things when you apply to Fair that you have to do. So just, check them off the list. I mean, there's still so many things I have to do. Not all my products are in Fair. I need to go and I sync them from my Shopify shop, but like the way I talk about things in Shopify is not the same way as I talk about things on Fair. Like I have a line on my Fair things that says something like, if you are looking for a higher quantity or different combination of products, please let me know. On my stickers, I'm like, my sticker printer is local and I can turn things around really fast if you need higher quantities. I don't have to wait for, sticker mule to send me stickers a week from now, I can call up my guy here in Bellingham and say, hey, I need a rush order for this brand, and he can usually fit me in. So I feel like adding those things like in your description will show brands too that like you're willing to work with them. Because I've had one person who was like, I only want 3 of this, but I want 10 of these and 11 of this, and they weren't the normal numbers. And I was like, yeah, sure, we can make that work, that kind of thing. So I think just showing the flexibility too is a great thing as well.
Yeah, and not everybody uses some store owners don't use Fair, and there's a good amount that there's a strong love-hate relationship, especially when
Absolutely.
it comes to the commissions. They have to pay. There's like their own Fair insider for shops. I mean, they have their own thing going on too. So this is definitely where you can utilize Shopify. I take orders also through my Shopify, and I just create like a draft order, and I just put in a 50% discount code, for whatever the price is. But yeah, not everybody uses Fair, and that's why you also really need to be using other channels. You need to be doing the pitching and reaching out and saying, hey, if you email me back, I'll send you an invoice. It's as easy as that. And some people do it that way too. So
Could you also, you mentioned you were going to say something about creating a lookbook or a guide in Canva.
yes, I would say so. Especially if you don't have a Fair website, that's okay. You don't have like a full catalog. I created I call it a catalog, not a line sheet, because it's a little bit more designed, right? A line sheet is like you just have a square photo. You might have your SKU underneath of it that, it says a candle, ABC, and it costs this much. But I'm happy to share my catalog for anybody to see it. There's like a little intro about me page, and then every page has just the full products and information about it. There's a sheet for that completely says like the payment terms. There's even like a draft invoice page. And again, I just did this in Canva. You can search in Canva, catalog line sheet and kind of zhuzh it up to make it your own. But I have it in Canva where I can share just the hyperlink. I suggest in pitch emails, actually, do not include photos. A lot of people, it might get sent to the spam. And again, people aren't like looking through this long, lengthy email, right? It's like 3 paragraphs. You're hyperlinking to your website, maybe your Etsy page or this catalog, and then sending it off your way. I also download a hard copy. That way, if you, want to show it to anybody, that here's a PDF that you can share with somebody. And it's just a really quick way to show them everything.
This is definitely now on my list to do, because if you're able to grab people off of Fair, you are saving yourself and the buyer a lot of money. Because with Fair, they have all of their fees. Plus, if a new person that you're buying with on Fair is going to cost you an extra $10, which if it's a $25 order, that's like a lot of the, you got to really hope for repeat sales with that person. But if you can just invoice them, then you're just paying their, credit card processing fee. It's so much better.
And some people, I have some customers who came to me from Fair, but now we work off of Fair because of, they're like, oh, is there a way that we can both work together and like help each other out? So yeah, I think, again, Shopify or Square, whatever the system is, people are happy to work with what works best for, everyone, I think.
Save these small businesses as much money as we can, right? We're all running on the thinnest of margins.
Yeah, Fair could be a whole other podcast. It's a little bit of a beast, but
yeah, it definitely, I think, should be added to our list of things we should chat about.
All right, so I think we'll link to your social in the description below the video or the podcast notes, as well as hopefully that Canva. We get that link from you. And then you also have a special offer for our audience, right?
I do. So I have a 20% discount for all the podcast listeners because I love my girl gang. And I also want to include, I'm going to include I have a Girl Gang SHEWOLF Rules to Live By inspired sticker that I'm going to be throwing in with everybody as well.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. Thank you so much. So
Of
you can get
course.
that by going to link.craftingcamps.com/SHEWOLF. And the coupon code is crafting for profit, all caps, all one word. Again, that's link.craftingcamps.com//SHEWOLF. Man, /SHEWOLF is incredibly difficult to say.
Tongue twister for you. That's SHEWOLF. If like you're like, what did Corey say?
what did Corey say? Why isn't her mouth working? And you'll get 20% off and an awesome sticker. So, Brittany, thank you so much for being here and sharing so openly about your wholesaling journey. You've been really helpful to me both in the past and today. I'm really excited. So your business really is kind of like this powerful example of like growing a business that is sort of like growing a craft business that is passive, which I feel like is a little hard to do. So very excited about it.
Thank you guys so much. It's been awesome to chat with you, Corey, again, and both of you. And I'm so excited to hear. Hopefully, all your listeners are going to be starting their wholesale journey. It's not as scary as it seems.
Yeah, I think that's what everyone needs to get out of this. So if you're listening and thinking about wholesaling, remember, you don't have to have everything perfect before you start. And I feel like we talk about that with every single episode, whatever the topic is. It does not have to be perfect. You just need to start. Just focus on getting your systems in place. Be clear on what makes your products unique. And don't be afraid of hearing a few no's along the way. It's going to be okay. You're going to find your people.
And if you enjoyed this episode, of course, please give it a review, give it 5 stars, send it to somebody who you think should be wholesaling. If you're like, this is not for me, but my friend makes the most amazing keychains you've ever seen, make sure to send her this episode because I think it could be really helpful on a lot of people's crafty journeys. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. We will see you for the podcast in 2 weeks.